Welcome back to the Behind the Uni podcast brought to you by the University of Gloucestershire. This special episode is in collaboration with Meningitis Now. Meningitis Now is a national charity working towards a future where no one dies from meningitis and anyone affected gets the support they need. Dive into an engaging discussion that explores meningitis, helping you recognise its early signs and understand its impact. This episode will help you empower yourself and your fellow students with actionable tips to mitigate the risks associated with meningitis, ensuring a healthier academic journey. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Behind the Uni podcast brought to you by the University of Gloucestershire. My name is Hisham, and as you can see, I am actually not with my regular co-host Lewis because we've got a very, very special episode. We have a special episode for you today in collaboration with Meningitis Now. We'll be talking about how you can look after yourself at university to make sure you're focusing on your future and ambitions. Meningitis Now is an amazing charity, a national charity, working towards a future where no one in the UK can die from meningitis, which is something that we'll definitely talk about this episode and how severe it can be, and everyone affected gets the support they need. Today we're joined by amazing students, which we'll introduce in a moment. If you're watching on YouTube, on the screen now you'll see timestamps for the full episode, so you can jump ahead to sections. I'm joined by two students, but also in our studio with us we've got an amazing team from Meningitis Now who at some point will discuss certain topics with us, or will join in, or they will correct us, which is something so important, as I'm not a doctor. None of us here are. We're here just to talk about a shared human experience about two students who contracted meningitis before starting their university experience. So if you do feel like you have symptoms or you're worried about meningitis, there are so much support available for you. Google Meningitis Now and get in touch with the charity, or you can call them on 0808 8010388. I got that right. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and travelling all the way here, because they're not Uni of Gloucester students. So if you start off with you, who are you, where are you from, and where do you study, and what do you study?
So, my name's Lana. I'm originally from the Midlands, like in between Leicester and Birmingham, because anytime I say Midlands, no one knows. But at the minute, I study in Cardiff, and I study law. And I'm hoping to do medical law in the end.
I'm Tilly. I'm from Brighton and I'm at Leeds studying visual communication.
Fab. Thank you so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, you were affected by meningitis before you started university, and we'll definitely touch about that and your journey through it and how you're doing now and all the different ways that you combat meningitis day to day. But I just want to start off by kind of asking, when a student goes to university, it's obviously a very stressful experience. It was obviously heightened for you by what you went through. But when you got there, how did you prepare as someone who was impacted by meningitis before you started university?
I think because I went so soon after coming out of hospital, I had no idea what to expect, to be honest. So I was sort of expecting the worst, also kind of expecting to just go back to normal. I sort of started everything that I always did, like going to the gym, going on runs. I think a big part of mine was I needed to eat properly. I think that was definitely a massive part, because at uni, I'd either forget to eat or forget that I need to actually buy food. Food's expensive. I may work at Tesco's, but I'm still no. 10%. That's
good.
It is.
It's better than most people. People don't get that.
True.
Tilly, what about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I just thought I'd go back to normal. I don't think I really prepared. My mum gave me some probiotics. I think that was about it, actually.
My mum gave me literally every vitamin.
I think vitamins, anything to put something back into your body.
I think in the end, I realised I was taking that many vitamins, they were making me worse. I literally had so many.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, definitely. If you are thinking about taking vitamins, read up, do your research, speak to your GP, because that is something that people think that I can take a multivitamin and take a B12 and take a zinc and take all that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Gonna go to Holland and Barrett and shop and that's it. No. Speak to your GP, figure out what your body actually needs before you take that stuff. But that's really interesting that obviously you guys went through something that needed attention medically when you actually started university, but so many students don't have that. They don't come to uni with a medical kit or anything. I guess when you started university, what was the kind of general conversation? Obviously you contracted meningitis before you started uni, so you started uni late. So when you joined university, when people asked, who are you, where are you from, how come you didn't join, what was the general vibe, what did you say? Can we start with you?
So I kind of because I joined a month late, for about a month and a half, so everyone had already settled in, freshers was over, so it was very much like, oh, where did you come from? Why have you just moved? And I think I'd tell people what it was, but a lot of people you say meningitis, they go, what is that? They have no idea. And then when you do explain it, there's just a look of kind of shock back. It's kind of then they don't know how to treat you. No one knows how to react, whether to be oh, I'm so sorry, or because I think I don't like when people are all oh, I'm so sorry, and they get really touchy, and then I'm I feel on edge, and they feel on edge. So I'm very much I'll then laugh and be oh, it's fine, it's funny, it's fine.
Yeah, because I guess you feel you're being cared for extra for no reason, and it makes you stand out, and you just don't want the attention, I guess.
And I think especially when it's it's just a standard flat drinks, and I'm meeting new people, and they're oh, how come you're late? And then I just was I don't want to put a dampener on this whole flat drinks right now. Let's not make it a sad occasion. But I told people just so that people were more aware, and also if I was ill, they kind of knew why. But I didn't go into full depth with a lot of people for a while, just because I wanted to settle in first as myself.
Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say pretty similar. I feel it kind of naturally comes out when people ask, especially with me. I had a chest infection as well, and I was coughing, so I'd be in the middle of a conversation, have this asthma coughing attack, and they'd be you all right? And I'd be well, and it kind of let me tell you. And it kind of just came out. But I think once you got closer with friends, you could, then you would want to tell them. I think with strangers, when you're first meeting someone, you don't want to be hi, I'm Tilly, I had meningitis. You don't want to be your illness, you want to be you.
You don't want to let it define you.
No, and it doesn't. But I think it's good that friends have an understanding that, as you said, they know when you're ill, they don't need to, they don't push you. Your tutors definitely should know, make your uni aware so that they can support you.
Yeah, I think I also had the thing as well with a lot of people feel I'm using it as an excuse. Because I get extensions and I get extra time, and people will be oh, you're so lucky. I'm oh,
which you are 100% entitled to, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, for one of them, I got an extension when I was really ill, and the extension was a month or so, and everyone was oh, you're so lucky. I was well, yeah, but if I could have done it on time, I really would have. I don't want to drag this out over months. Also remember what the reason for the extension is. That's not lucky. I'm it's not necessarily the most lucky experience in the world, but
yeah, well, I mean, before we really dive deep into everything, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and doing this. It's a disease, and we'll talk about what it is in a moment, but I'm really glad that you guys are on the mend and you're feeling better, and I hope you continue to feel better. So thank you so much. I'm going to actually send a question to the peanut gallery before we start. I'm going to put you on the spot. Please introduce who you are, where you're from, obviously Meningitis Now, and could you tell us what is meningitis?
So I'm Megan, and I work in our communications team at Meningitis Now, and I'm joined here by my colleagues Isabel and Heidi. And so meningitis is the inflammation of the meninges, which is the membrane that surrounds your brain and the spinal cord. So it's a really serious disease. It can start very quickly, come on very quickly, progress very quickly. And it can have some really serious long-term impacts. So with bacterial meningitis, around 1 in 10 people tragically will die as a result of meningitis. Those that survive are left with often lifelong after effects, including limb loss, hearing loss, fatigue, memory issues, a really kind of wide range of both kind of visible and invisible after effects.
That was perfectly sound. Thank you so much. So yeah, as you can see, it is an extremely serious disease, and if you're watching this from the University of Gloucestershire or from any other university around the UK, you might question yourself, why the hell is the university talking about this? And it's a really important issue for us to talk about, and I think we will definitely talk about this. It's really common amongst younger people, especially within university communities. Yeah, you both contracted meningitis before coming to university, so we'll kind of start at the very beginning, which is always a good place to start. Tilly, could we start with kind of your story? How, literally talk us through from A to Z, what happened, how you were diagnosed?
I was at Boardmasters Festival in Cornwall, and the day before I wasn't feeling great, but pushed it aside, kind of, excited for the festival. And then we got there, we set up our tents. It was during a heat wave, it was like 30 plus degrees, I think. So we were like, right, we're going to go down to the sea, cool off. I had the worst headache I've ever had, started getting really sensitive to light. And then as I was sunbathing, I was sweating, but I was also shivering. And that's when it like really clicked. And I was like, something is wrong.
And for context, Boardmasters last year was really, really hot. So when you're shivering, like you feel cold and hot at the same time, obviously you were like...
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, exactly. And then luckily I was with two of my really good friends who were like, okay, we'll, sort you out, we'll see what's going on. And I called 111 and listed off my symptoms at the time. And they didn't really say anything except an ambulance is coming for you. So I was thinking, okay, this is a bit more serious than I bargained for. Unfortunately, the ambulance didn't actually turn up. So I got to the hospital about 5 hours later. Right. Waited in A&E for a while. And unfortunately, no one really took me seriously because it being a festival, everyone thought that maybe I was drunk or I'd overdosed or something like that, and no one really understood until I saw a doctor many hours later and said stiff neck, what's it called, sensitivity to light, body shaking, convulsions, hot, cold, headache, like everything like that. The one thing I didn't have was the rash, and that is obviously one of the main symptoms. And then I was in hospital for about 4 nights. I had CT scan, I had a chest x-ray, I think, and then a lumbar puncture, which was the decider of if it was viral or bacterial, and it was viral. And then I was on a drip constantly with antibiotics and pain relief. And then I was just told, there's nothing more we can do. Just go home, you'll be better in 2 weeks. It's a bit like a fever or the flu. And it was not. I spent the rest of the month on the sofa, and then ended up going to uni middle of September. So just over a month after.
Yeah, and Tilly listed some of the symptoms there. There are so many symptoms which
so
have
many.
A lot of similarities to other forms of illnesses and diseases. Later on in the podcast, we have a nurse from Meningitis Now who will explore the symptoms and explain them more. But as always, if you feel like something is not right, seek help. Download the NHS app, speak to your GP, get in touch with Meningitis Now, because you never know. Yeah. Were you aware of the symptoms?
No, I think, anyone will say it. It's like a cold. It's like the flu. Like, you don't know how serious it is. And I think the only way I can describe it is it felt like my body was shutting down. And I just knew, like, I had a gut feeling like this isn't just something normal. I obviously didn't expect it to be meningitis either, but definitely didn't know. And
then you went to hospital? And how long were you in hospital for?
About 4 or 5 nights.
Wow.
I was actually kept in the A&E because they didn't want to move me. So I was in like the A&E section rather than the, whatever else, the normal hospital, and then I was just sent home with some antibiotics, and that was it really.
And then you obviously started delving deep into what it is, like teaching yourself more.
Yeah.
I'm guessing your family did the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Everyone was like, what is it?
And how are you feeling now?
Definitely better. Like, obviously I'm not on the sofa anymore. I'm very able to do everything, but I've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue, so that's been like the biggest change for me, is that I'm a big extrovert, and I think I've had to really prioritize myself and like learn to say no and like look after myself, and I need at least 10 hours sleep now, otherwise I can't, or like a nap in the day. I need something. But I do get headaches, brain fog, like lack of concentration at uni is really hard. And
Yeah, and I think you just said something that's so important for any student who's watching, any young person that's watching. Prioritize yourself, prioritize your health.
Definitely.
Whether it's to do with meningitis or mental health or any form of other illness, the more time you give your body, the more time we'll get back. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, we'll dive more into your journey once you get into uni. But I want to hear your A to Z journey of your symptoms kind of flaring up, and then were you getting diagnosed? How was that?
So I went on a big night out because it was like the week before I was meant to move to uni. So it was like the final night out at home, the big night out, before everyone moved
Everyone
away.
has one, the big huzzah.
Before everyone moved away and like went to different ends of the country. So it was a kind of a mad one. Like there were a lot of drinks. Like everyone was very drunk. I didn't go to bed until like 7 a.m. the next morning. So I woke up. To be fair, I actually didn't sleep much because I had to go shopping the next day. So like I hadn't slept much, but I just felt so ill and I just felt so run down. My neck was stiff and I had a bad headache. Yeah. But obviously I had a mad night out the night before, so everyone was like,
"You're hungover.
You are hungover." Yeah. Like, this is what a hangover is, because I've never had a hangover in my life. I still haven't, which I'm kind of glad about. But
Touch wood. but it's like, I guess that's like really interesting because, as we said, there are so many similarities to so many other things. So I guess people around you be like, "She had a crazy night last night. This is just the aftermath." Yeah.
And I think that was definitely my thing was, as well, because I'd never had a hangover. I was like, well, is this what a hangover is? Like, I feel like I had nothing to compare it to really either. But then, so I went shopping because I was going to go and buy myself like uni equipment and stuff to go to uni with. And I got out the car for like 5 minutes and I nearly passed out. So I had to go and lie back down in the car. And my parents like brought me like food and stuff and they were like, "Oh, eat this." And I had no appetite whatsoever at all. And then my parents were like, "Right, okay, just like sleep it off and it might be okay. Like, it's just probably you've had no sleep, you've not eaten, you've not done anything." So I just went back and I went to sleep. And then the next day I still wasn't hungry. My headache had got even worse. And then by the next evening, I like forced some food down me, threw up literally immediately within seconds. And by that point, like, I couldn't really move, like, or do anything. So my mum, like, carried me up all the stairs to shower and wash, like, sick out my hair, which is kind of disgusting. Like, it was horrible. And then we went to the doctors and they thought I'd been spiked. And they were, like, kind of between spiked and alcohol poisoning, I think, was their kind of thoughts. So they told me to go to A&E anyway, which obviously was good that they said that. And then I got to A&E and it took a while because obviously when you're there, you're like telling people you've got a headache and people are like, you've got a headache. That's a headache.
And when you tell them that kind of the history of the past couple of nights, they're like, yeah, this makes sense. She's dehydrated.
Yeah. So then I finally saw like one doctor that was like checked the neck stiffness especially, which I'd just put down to like sleeping funny, sleeping on a sofa and stuff like that. And he was like, the fact that you can't move your neck is not like good. And like within the space of me being in A&E, I think I was there for like 2-3 hours. And when I first got there, I was like hobbling walking, but I was walking. And then by the time they figured out what it was, I couldn't physically walk. And like, I was in a wheelchair, like having to be wheeled to the next room.
That's so serious. So within literally like a few hours, your body was like, not normal.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the right word, but it was not functioning properly.
And like they were like, what's the pain 1 to 10? And that it was just like more than that. Like
off the scale.
Yeah, literally I was like past that scale, so far past. And they were like, well, that's not an answer. But like, so then they admitted me straight away and they straight away started treating me for meningitis before they actually got the results back, because they were like, if it isn't that, it's not going to harm you. But if it is, we need to get it in you. And they did a brain scan, and they said it was like one of the clearest results they've seen for it. And they were like, it's so obvious. And then after that, they did the lumbar puncture that night, which I don't know what happened with the results of mine, but it took like 2 weeks to come back, which was bad at the time. But looking back at it now, I think it definitely stopped my parents from worrying, because I got bacterial meningitis, which is sort of the one known for like limb loss and like deaths and things like that. So I think when I first went in, they were like, you could be out in like 4 days, you could be fine. But I was in hospital for around a month. And then I came out after I had like another lumbar puncture, like just to double check it was all gone. But I think definitely, once my parents did find out what it was, you could see me visibly getting better. Yeah. So they were a bit less worried. But I think had they have known straight away, because there's not that much out there of like stories of where it's gone, not well, but like
where people have recovered.
Yeah, people that have recovered. So I think if they had have got that before then, not knowing any stories of where it went okay, I think they would have been terrified even more than they already were.
Wow. Well, I mean, you've both touched on that. There's 2 types of meningitis, viral and bacterial. And in the UK, you can get vaccinations that can protect against one, not both. Am I correct?
So there's vaccinations to protect against different strains of bacterial meningitis. The main one for students to be aware of is the MenACWY vaccine, and it's really important to make sure that you've had that vaccine, that you're up to date with that, but also to be aware that unfortunately it doesn't protect against all strains of meningitis, so still to know the signs and symptoms and to,
I'm conscious to kind of like obviously get both of, because you've both had very different experiences in terms of starting university with it. So Tilly, you started a week later. And when you got there, obviously preparing for university might have been extra difficult, while you're obviously not feeling great.
Yeah.
What kind of things were you preparing for? Were you just like packing your stuff normally, or were you actually, okay, I need to have this, I need to have that, I need to...
I don't know. I think I went in there thinking it would be normal again. Obviously packed up the essentials, everything I needed.
Pots and
pans. But I think I was just so unaware of what was about to come.
Yeah.
I thought I'd done the worst, which I guess I had, but I just thought it was going to go back to normal and everything was going to be fine. And, you know, this is the thing that I think is so key, is that hospitals aren't giving you the aftercare knowledge. Like, they literally said you're going to be fine in 2 weeks, and it's just completely different. So I think, I was very like naive to uni.
Would you say it's literally like changed your life?
Yeah, massively. I think, just like my view on everything, like being more conscious of my own health, like, it's huge. A lot.
So Meningitis Now, would you say that was kind of your way of like trying to figure out what the aftercare is?
Yeah, definitely. I think because it was like, I hadn't got better. I was thinking, okay, why is this? Is this my fault, or am
I doing something wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Like, or is this how it actually is? And so I was Googling like meningitis side effects and everything. And Meningitis Now came up, and it was the first time I'd ever heard of them. I hadn't been told about them in hospital or anything. And I was just, going through all the stuff on their website. They've got loads of like support and stuff. And then there's a Facebook group that you can join.
I'm really intrigued to find out more about that. Did you like, as soon as you Google Meningitis Now, did you like do a lot of reading, and then did you call them up, or did you?
I didn't actually call. I just looked on their website.
Yeah.
And then
you found that Facebook group.
Yeah. And then I found the Facebook group, and I just literally like, I joined it, and I started reading all this stuff, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is normal, like this is okay. And then I put up my own Facebook post, and I started getting loads of replies like about everyone saying, oh, I had the exact same side effects, and it was just amazing, and it made me feel so much less alone, so much more like comfortable, and like okay about what was happening to me rather than panicking that it was not right, as it were, almost, if you know what I mean.
How did you come about to start your journey with Meningitis Now? Was it the same thing? You came out of hospital, you were trying to like live your life, and you started figuring out what the next steps are?
Yeah, I think with mine, it was sort of when I was still in my denial I'm fine stage.
Yeah.
Because I had quite a long bit like...
Did you both have that?
Yeah, definitely.
I was very much like, I left and everyone was like, take a gap year, like you've already missed some of uni, like just take a break.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be the girl that was ill. So I was like, no, I'm going. So I went within 2 weeks of leaving hospital. I was like, right, mum, pack me up. I'm going to university.
I'm off.
Yeah, which again, it's like 3 hours from home. So it's not like it's like a little trip, but it's like a big change and a big difference to a city I'd been to once in my life as well. And then so I sort of got in contact with them. I think it was like, I'd say it was like February time.
Of this year?
Yeah. So
2023, yeah.
Yeah, so then I had like Googled a few symptoms and stuff. And also I sort of wanted to help like raise a bit more awareness because I was like, well, I didn't even know the disease existed when I got it. So I feel like it needs to be more known about. And then, so I looked it up and then I found their Instagram and I think I DM'd someone and was like, how do I like get involved in this?
Oh, wow. So you got in touch with Meningitis Now on the basis of not seeking help, but wanting to help.
Yeah, it was more on that side. And then I went to an event, I think it was like 2 weeks ago in London at the Parliament thing. And I met other people that had it and like people that had it years and years ago or people that had it recently. And I think I was like one of the more recent cases. And it was like, I don't know, it was almost validation. It was like
that's really nice.
Validating
Did you go as well?
To know that other people had the same, because I sort of thought like, I'm just being stupid now, like I'm not ill, like I need to just get over myself. And I think it was sort of like validating to talk to people that had been through the same and had the same, or even people that had done it and it had sort of started to get better for them. Because it's not long ago for me. I haven't.
It affects a lot of people, so
I haven't really reached that stage, and it was like I'd never met anyone else that had it, never spoken to anyone else that had it or anything like that. So it's sort of like isolating in a way. Like I kind of felt like a bit alone.
Yeah.
So like obviously my parents saw it all happen and stuff, but I feel like they went through a whole different experience to me. Like their experience was horrible as well, but I think it was very different.
I think if you're going through something hard, whether it's an illness or anything in general, it does feel isolating.
You feel like
because
on
it's
your own.
you with your brain thinking about why am I feeling this, questioning yourself, trying to figure out what to do to not feel like that. And it's really interesting that you say talking to people helped you. Did you find the same thing with the Facebook group?
Massively. I ended up FaceTiming a girl off it, and we had like a huge chat. And again, similarly to you, she was further ahead with her process. So she was saying to me like, it's fine, like I'm 3 years ahead, like I'm so much better now. And I was like, that's so like positive.
Gives you
like,
hope.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so nice to hear. And I also wrote a blog post on Meningitis Now's page with the story of...
We'll link it in the YouTube description if you're watching on YouTube.
With like my story. And I had people then messaging me saying, oh, I've just read your story, like it was so helpful. And I think this is like again with this, it's just raising awareness. And it's
and like I think for a long time I'd as well been like, I don't know, I think I slightly felt guilty as well because I didn't come out with like there's people that have died from it and there's people that have lost limbs and things like that. And I think a lot of my thing was like, I was like, I don't want to be dramatic because like a lot of people that haven't had it were like, you're so lucky, which I am in a way because I haven't had like the worst parts of that part. But I sort of felt like it was almost like invalidating because people were like, you're so lucky because you're fine now. And I was like, then I felt like I couldn't talk to people about it because I felt like I should have been fine. And I think it's only like quite recently that I've been like, oh no, and like sort of accepted that and meeting new people that are quite similar to me side effects wise and things. And I think it's made me realise a lot more and like accept it a lot more.
I mean, that's a really sobering thing you've just said there. Like, I mean, me saying this is not going to change it, but I think the shared sentiment in this room and everyone that kind of knows about this disease, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Your experience is so valid.
Yeah.
Yes, you I'm guessing you're incredibly grateful that you caught it at the right time for it worsened. But it's this is the reason why we're doing this, is that we want people to be aware of this disease, the symptoms that come with it, and how to prepare for it or combat it at the right time. I'm really conscious about, once you got to university, obviously uni is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And then dealing with this is a whole other different thing. How did you take care of yourself in like the first 3 months, where firstly students, there is this kind of stereotype that everyone goes out, gets drunk, has a good time. Obviously you had to prioritize yourself, like you said earlier. How did you actually take care of yourself? How did you actively say no to plans, or did you start being better at food shopping and taking care of your body and feeding yourself in the right way? Or did you struggle? But the question to both of you.
I'm quite bad with FOMO, and also with moving late as well. I was very much like, I need to make friends, so I need to do everything I can to make friends. So I do go out a lot, and I did from the start, which I realised I'm a lot more of a lightweight as well since it.
Yes, I can agree with that.
I was a lightweight to start with, and then having like over a month off drinking, and then going to uni, I was like...
Drink responsibly, by the way.
Yeah.
I have to say that.
I was like one drink, and I was like, oh my God.
That's really interesting, because like I as someone that hasn't experienced it, I think, like you say, you get chronic fatigue, so you must have days where you're like better than others.
Yeah.
So do you think it still affected your like FOMO? Were you still able to be extroverted and go out and have that regular uni experience?
Yeah, I think I went through a lot of like kind of the denial bit, and I sort of forced myself to do everything. And I think I'm more like, in the past few months, I've been like, no, I can't do that. I feel ill. Like I need to like prioritize myself. And like I threw myself into like, I wanted a job. I needed a job to like afford stuff.
Which is what I mean by the whole other uni side of things. Actually, like
so
how to take care of yourself
like,
financially.
Obviously,
And
my
all
parents
that
are happy to like help me out with money and all
certain
of that.
extent.
But I was like, I want to be like independent in a way. So I definitely forced myself into a lot of things. And I think recently I've laid back on it and realised like you can even go to events and be sober when everyone else isn't. Yeah. You don't need that. And like if you don't feel well, you can go to bed. You can like just leave. Like people aren't gonna judge you for that.
And it's not because you're boring, it's because you're actually taking care of yourself and your body, which I think is so important.
Yeah, and I think I definitely thought people would be like, oh, she's just boring, because they haven't met me. But like now I've realised none of them would have judged me from the start, but I'm so much more comfortable now. I'm like, no, all right, I've got to get my rest. Like I don't feel well today. I know that I need to just leave it and just...
I guess general question for both of you, if there's anyone out there who's watching this who might have gone through what you've gone through and is finding some sort of like comfort in watching this, or someone who think they might have meningitis or any form of other illness, what is your piece of advice around that topic of like, I have a fear of missing out, but I know that I shouldn't? I
think everyone has FOMO. Like everyone gets FOMO, and it is okay to miss things. Like I think everyone always thinks that that's going to be the night and that's going to be it, and like that's going to where everything's happened. But there's going to be another night next week, and like your friends are only going to talk about this certain event for so long. Like they can only, you can only keep going about something for so long. And I just think it's not worth it. Like I think that's the main thing I've said to myself. I'm like, it's not worth I can't think of the word.
Deprioritizing myself, or like
not help, like it's not helping myself, like it's not worth it because
it doesn't serve you.
Yeah, and it's only going to make me worse the next day. I'm only then not going to be able to do this and do that. And yeah, I think that's the main thing, that it's not worth it, and that there will always be another event. Yeah. Like always.
Would you agree?
Yeah, like the other week it was my friend's birthday, but she had it at home, which was like so far from uni. And then so it was her birthday, and then the next day I was meant to be at a festival, and then the next day I was meant to be at my friend's uni.
Busy.
And then the next day I had work.
Wow.
And because I was like...
That's not sustainable.
No, not even for someone that's
No.
not been ill. Like, I literally travelled the entire of the UK. I was in Wales, then Hereford, then the Midlands, then I was in Liverpool, then Manchester.
So you did it?
Yeah, I did it.
How did you feel while doing it?
I felt good at the time, but I definitely crashed afterwards. And since then, I've thought, do you know what? And I even thought at the time, like, the next day I was like, that almost wasn't worth
it.
what I've put, like, the, like, after effects of that wasn't worth it. Like, I will see my friends again, like, I will see them again, I will go on nights out, I'll do stuff, like, and I think that as well heightens, like, stress-wise was too much, as well as, like, the actual strain on just doing all of that, not sleeping enough. It was like also the stress of like getting to all these places and doing all this, because even before, I don't like trains, and like I'm such like a country girl, like
nice.
So like my family live in London, some of my family, and I'll go and I'm like, I'm just gonna walk across the whole of London just to avoid getting on a tube. And like it's so bad, I do it all the time. So like getting on trains to go all over the UK, that in like the space of 4 days was a lot.
I think what I love about you sharing that like busy student life, or just any young people always want plans, want to do something, especially when the weather is this nice and stunning. What I love hearing about that is that, again, it doesn't define you.
No.
You're living your life. You're taking time. You're learning through. It's a learning curve. Because you've only had it for what, a year, less than a year.
Less than a year.
So it will take time. And like you said, the person that you FaceTimed like had it for 3 years. And told you it will get better. Kind of thing. Again, what advice would you give to students to better prepare for meningitis? So, if someone is coming to uni who didn't contract it and maybe have seen this, or have seen an advert about meningitis, or have seen something about Meningitis Now, what would your advice be to someone to kind of like find out more and educate themselves about it?
I would just say definitely be aware of the symptoms, and I know the symptoms like cross over with things, but I do definitely think to other people, because you're trying to explain it to other people, they will see the crossover, but I definitely think when you actually have it, you can definitely feel a difference. Like you feel like there is, you know, you might not know it's meningitis, but you know it is not just.
It's not just a heavy cold.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I think.
Or it's not just COVID.
Maybe like sort of cluing yourself up to that, getting vaccinations, and also like even being aware that other people could have, even if it's not that specifically, other people could have gone through illnesses or have different problems that you don't have, and just sort of like kind of be aware when people are saying like, oh, I don't want to go out tonight, or things like that, and not being like, oh, but you have to, like you have to tonight will be the best night, like sort of in a way like not pressure, even though that is the uni lifestyle, I know that, but like I think there is a point where it's like, I don't know, just to know. To
be kind to others and just understand it.
Definitely.
So what would your piece of advice be?
Gosh, I don't know.
For someone who has no idea what meningitis is, about to start university.
Yeah, I'd say, know the symptoms and check up on your friends and make sure that they're okay. And like, definitely be aware. I think that's all you can do. Like, this isn't something either of us had ever thought we were going to get ever prepared for. And I think it's just something you've got to do, you know, it just happens, and then all of a sudden you've got to deal with it. Whereas if you're a little bit more clued up and you know a little bit more, I think that would help, because I didn't know before I got it.
Amazing. Before we go into our next section, I would love to just take a break, and please keep on watching. We've got a nurse from Meningitis Now that will discuss the symptoms of meningitis and ways to recognize it at early stages. So yeah, please watch it, and we'll be right back.
Hello, my name's Fiona, and I'm one of the nurses working at Meningitis Now. Common signs of meningitis and septicemia are fever with cold hands and feet, vomiting, drowsy or difficult to wake, confusion and irritability, severe muscle pain, blotchy pale skin with spots or a rash. Severe headache, a stiff neck, a dislike of bright lights, convulsions or seizures. Someone with meningitis or septicemia can get a lot worse very quickly. Keep checking them and do not wait for a rash. If someone is ill and getting worse, trust your instincts and call for medical help immediately.
Thank you so much for sticking around. As you've seen, some of the meningitis symptoms are so similar to so many things. Like, it could be mistaken for COVID, a cold, food poisoning. And we've just touched earlier in the podcast about when you went to the hospital, you were at a festival, obviously you were mistaken as being generalized as a young person at a festival.
Yeah.
You're either drunk, you might be on drugs, or you're dehydrated. After a night out, again, you were generalized as, she just has a hangover. I guess what I'm really aware of, anyone that could be watching this, is that to not pass judgment. Did you feel like you were being judged when you went to the hospital? Did you feel like you were holding back and actually explaining what was going on because you felt like someone might mistake it for?
Yeah,
being
I
drunk
think
or
I
hungover?
definitely did when I was at the at A&E, and it's not against them, it was just the timing of a festival, and I think
Badly
that is
timed, yeah.
a stereotype of, as you said, a young person at a festival who's obviously going to be doing this. And, you know, everyone was like, have you had alcohol? I was like, I actually haven't drunk in about 3 days. Like,
Wow,
you
okay.
know, I was really...
So, no.
Yeah, I was like, I have not, you know, nothing, I have taken nothing. And like, yeah, they were just, yeah, they were not having it. I think maybe at a different time they wouldn't have been so presuming that it was something else.
Yeah.
But it did take a long time for an actual doctor to say this is meningitis. Yeah.
And what about you? Did you
Yeah,
feel...
I think like the first nurse that I saw when they were like taking my like blood pressure and stuff when I was actually in A&E, at first they were like, oh, so like what are your symptoms and stuff? And I was telling them, and then they were like, oh, so like what have you done? And I was like, well, I went on a night out. And then it was just sort of like that knowing like nod of like, so like that's what it is. And like it's sort of like, it's almost like you saw them like starting off being worried and then being like, oh, like almost being like, oh, well then that's why. Yeah.
And I guess it is just like, it goes back to how similar these symptoms are to other illnesses.
Yeah.
I think we've just discussed something with the PEDA gallery and the meningitis team, that everyone talks about the rash, like you mentioned earlier, like that is like, I guess it's a misconception.
Yeah, because I did not have that.
Yeah, neither did I.
Which is not a thing. If I could speak to the meningitis team, on your website it says, don't wait for the rash.
Yeah, so the rash does not appear in all cases. In lots and lots of people who have meningitis, they never get the rash. If they do have the rash, it's often one of the very last symptoms to appear. So if you're experiencing those other symptoms that can be confused with other things, if someone is ill and they're getting worse, then seek medical attention. Don't wait for the rash.
And I guess as someone that works for the charity, you obviously hear so many different stories about how people might contract meningitis, or how family members or friends have. As someone that kind of like works this a lot, what is your piece of advice on people around you if you think they're getting ill, or if you as a person start notice those symptoms in someone else? What would you say they should do?
Just don't be afraid to take action. Don't think, if I take this person to the hospital, I'm going to be accused of time wasting or anything like that. It's so much better to take action, because hopefully it is nothing. Hopefully it is just flu or a really bad cold, but it might not be. And feel empowered to take action if you're worried about someone. Don't hold back.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those like general things of any illness. If you feel like something is wrong, like you said, you were at a beach on a hot day, you're like, why am I shivering?
Yeah, definitely.
Seek help. It's like there are places and resources available to do that. Like you can call 111, who go through a very, I call it like a standard screening, because it rules out a lot of things. So that will be a really good point to start, or like check the app, read up with the symptoms. Again, thank you both so much for talking about your journey, and I really hope that you continue to get better and achieve your dreams of being a lawyer or work in visual merchandising, not visual merchandising,
Visual communication.
Visual communication, because it's something that we are so keen about with this podcast, is to let people know that no matter what kind of hardships you might go through, whether it's meningitis or anything else, that there's always resources out there like Meningitis Now. And again, thank you guys for doing all the amazing work to help young people. I kind of want to like switch the conversation a little bit. So you started university, and we've said starting uni alone is a really, really big thing for any person, whether it's a mature student or a young person. What's it like for you now, meningitis aside, in terms of like striking a balance of taking care of yourself, having fun and studying? It's a really loaded question, I know.
I think balance is hard.
Yeah?
I think is the first thing. I think I've definitely got more into like cooking and stuff now.
Love
Now
that.
I've like settled in. I feel like that's been a really like nice thing to do, and be able to
Do it with your friends?
actually enjoy it. And yeah, exactly. Like I have like dinner with different friends, and
Nice.
we all like cook our own meals. And I think,
What's your go-to?
I love a good halloumi fajita, actually. That's quite
Nice.
it's
Wow.
quite an easy one. But yeah, I think cooking is a really easy way to keep yourself healthy just in general, obviously. But I think coming from someone who's had to say no, I think saying no to nights out is also really important, and making sure that, you know, if you have a really important exam the next day, you don't have to go on the night out, and
You can go after.
exactly,
Yeah,
you've got the night
celebrate
after. I also think like the pub is so underrated. Like you don't need to
I
go
agree.
clubbing till 5 a.m. You can go for a nice drink, have a nice catch up.
I much prefer a pub
or
or like
definitely.
bar vibes, but then like a lot of people do prefer clubbing, but I get bored. Like I
yeah.
quite like to talk to people, and if you're in a club, you just have to shout. over everyone. So
Do you
like,
want another drink?
yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Like, I'd quite happily just go to a pub and have like 2 drinks or none, but just be able to like actually talk to your friends
Yeah. And
I
instead
guess-
of like have the catch up in the night at like 5 a.m. when you've come back from the club
Yeah.
and you are still incredibly drunk and
And
you're
I
just
think
like
that's the
catching up.
balance of it. It's
Yeah,
like finding
exactly.
something that you love, whether it's like going out for food or going out for drinks or anything.
Yeah.
Just finding
Yeah.
something that works for you.
I think pubs definitely more in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love that.
'cause I think I definitely struggled to find like sober fun. Like I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of people, quite a few people won't do like now I'm quite close to the beach, so I'll be like, oh, can we just go on a beach day?
Love
And
that.
stuff. And like at first, like I feel like people weren't really doing stuff like that because they were in a fresher mindset.
Yeah.
But things like that, even like just for health wise, just to sit on a beach or like sit in a park or something and just be outside, because I can't sit in my room all day.
Yeah.
Like
Get
I know
the sun.
Yeah, loads of my friends.
Which is really important.
It is, yep.
If you wear SPF. But yeah, it's really interesting because we at the university, as a student here, we don't use the word fresher because we say welcome week or like welcome events.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
we try to eliminate the stigma of like, you have
Being
to go
a
out to drink.
fresher,
Yeah.
You have to go out and drink and have a good time. We do amazing things, and I really encourage you, if you go back to university, like try to encourage your friends to like go paint
Yeah.
pottery or like things like that, or paint together,
Yeah.
or do meals together. Like we do this thing called a dish party where we like assign a cuisine from around the world and we all bring a dish together. And
That's
it's
so
much fun.
nice.
But it's so interesting. You say cooking. When you were going through kind of like the recovery meningitis and you started university, what was both of your like comfort meal?
I mean, when I was in hospital, because I'm vegetarian,
Oh,
Yeah.
me too.
I can't lie, all there was for me to eat was mashed potato.
Oh wow.
So I used to love mashed potato,
And now
but I
And now.
spent a month straight only eating mashed potato and sweet corn, and like it was like a long month.
wow. So not mashed potato anymore. Are you a soup person?
I've got a bit closer to it.
Oh no.
No, see, I'd never understood soup. Like, I just don't get
I
it.
had
What, the
soup at
concept?
hospital. That
Why
put me
is
right
it a
off.
drink but it's a food? Like, I just don't understand it, and I never have.
I love that. Well, it's like a smoothie.
Yeah, but like,
Do you not like smoothies either?
well, I
I
do,
love a
but they're a
smoothie.
drink. But like,
That's a drink and a food.
soups- Is it?
Yeah, it's fruit.
It's fruit smashed
I
up.
guess
It's
that's
like
true.
vegetables smashed up.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
It just feels wrong to drink.
Yes.
I
your
think
food.
pesto pasta's a good comfort.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people always
I love
say
it.
pesto pasta.
Yeah, and like loads of like little veggies in it as well.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
I think that's when you're doing your food shops as students, because like you just said, like food is really, really important to like nurture and give yourself the right nutrients. how do you get the balance of like, I need to have enough vegetables, I need to have enough protein? Like, do you even, are you actively looking at stuff like that?
I'm bad with protein, so I've started looking at that a bit more because I'm vegetarian and I didn't really ever like the taste of meat that much. So I don't really have that much fake meat either, which is generally where the protein is. Like, so I eat a lot of like vegetables and fruit, which is good, but I feel like it's not really balanced unless you have everything. And so I was just eating vegetables and fruit for ages. Yeah. And like people will be like, "Oh, that's so good for you," but like it's not really.
Yeah, because it's balanced.
Yeah, balance, like I'm like always low on iron and stuff because like I just never thought about eating stuff like that. And I think I've realised since living alone and my dad's not cooking stuff and putting stuff in my food that like I need, I've realised like
you have to actively do it.
Yeah, I have to do it myself, and I do look at things a bit more and I'm like, okay, so that's got protein in it, so I actually do need to eat that. I think. So
what, do you actually like look up like nutrient value for like certain foods and stuff like that?
I kind of just see when it says on the packet in big protein. Like I'm like, okay.
Protein packet. But it's so interesting you say that because if you're not eating meat, there's this misconception that okay, I need to buy meat alternatives to get protein.
Yeah.
There's so many great vegetables out there. Grains, beans, like.
Yeah, but I'm
again, I'm not a nutritionist. Please, like, find a resource maybe at your university or online that you can find really great recipes. There's so many great resources out there. We'll link some in the description if you're watching on YouTube. What about you? Are you actively looking for certain ingredients and certain stuff?
I think I've started like meal planning, so I don't like eating the same thing each day because I just get bored of it. So I think I meal plan, which also helps shopping because you're buying the ingredients you need and saving money and food.
Hitting
it all,
ticking all the boxes.
But I think just making sure that there's a variety of stuff. And like, I've definitely noticed like when I eat rubbishy foods, like if I go a few days with pizzas or whatever, I can see myself like getting more tired easier. So I think food is such a key thing, especially when you've had an illness or having one. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that like if you don't get like a really good night's sleep, you notice that in like your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Are you both like regimented in terms of the sleep that you get? Like this, if one of your friends walks in the morning, you're like, no, I'm still sleeping. Or are you bad with it?
I really struggle to sleep. Like I don't sleep early. I can't like, I don't know. I have to, or like I'll nap and then that'll keep me awake all night and stuff like that. So then I've started doing it a lot more like in the past few months, like trying to do enough in the daytime so that then you are tired.
You're tired,
yeah. Like sometimes you're like physically tired or mentally tired, but not the other one.
Yeah, I get that. I think for me, I literally, before meningitis, I could I could do an all-nighter or I could have a few days of bad sleep because I was doing whatever. Now, honestly, it's one of the most important things for me. Like I'm like a grandma, like we always joke that like I will leave the pub first, but like, I'm okay with that now. Like I've taken that title.
Completely
and I need my sleep. I also try to plan things in the day to start later. So I give myself the morning that I don't have to wake up early, I don't have to rush, because one of my side effects is in the morning I feel really sick.
Yeah.
Or really tired or really dizzy. So if I give myself that time, like that improves my day, it means I'm less tired and able to do more things. So I think it's at uni, it's working your day around you and your needs and what fits in.
Yeah, so it's like if work will be like start at 8 a.m. I'm like, I can't. Like, and then that does sound like students can't, but like
you've got
I think sometimes
a general reason.
Yeah, and I just think as well, if you are a student, you are kind of having late nights. Like I feel like, I know it gets stigma, but like it's kind of fine to sleep in like late. Definitely. Like there's no
at UOG, we have been so open on our podcast about how that a regular timeline does not like work for a student.
No, it doesn't.
Your weekends are the time that you work.
Yeah.
Your days are the days that you kind of like have times off. So if you're a student watching this and you're putting pressure on yourself for not waking up early, going to bed late, as long as you're taking care of your body, try to be kinder to yourself and figure out like a good routine, a good schedule that works for you.
I think that's so important.
Like, I work like both Saturdays and Sundays, 9 hours both day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, right, so Saturdays
your
and
weekends
Sundays,
are not your weekends.
I'm not going out. Like, but then weekdays I will, which like to someone that's not at uni is weird, but like
it makes sense for
us. It makes sense. It's so much
Yeah.
easier to work on a weekend when you don't have lectures, you don't have other things going on.
Yeah.
And really, events are too expensive on weekends anyway.
Yeah.
Like it's cheaper to go out on like a random day and do stuff like that. But I think definitely like you can sleep in. Like
Yeah.
I think as long as I've not missed like all my lectures, if I do sleep in, I
Go
don't
to your
really,
lectures.
I don't really mind.
I feel like
that
my
much.
lecturer will like not be happy if I don't say that. Go to your lectures.
Yeah, definitely go.
Yeah. I'm really because obviously we discussed about the fact that you contracted meningitis before you came to uni, so you had kind of like a boost in terms of being aware of your health and whatnot. But a lot of students don't actually come to uni maybe vaccinated or anything. We at the university say that if you come to start university at the University of Gloucestershire without your vaccination, we have an on-campus GP where you can sign up, and it's really, really important that you sign up to a GP when you move away from home. Did you guys sign up to GPs when you move away from home?
Straight away.
Yeah, I literally did it before I even moved. I'd like already filled in the forms ready to
Yeah.
hand in because I was like, right, I know
I need this.
Yeah. But I think like,
Yeah.
even I feel like I definitely would have prioritized it less if I
Yeah.
hadn't. But I think it is one of those things like you should, but you just don't think about it.
So would you say to someone who obviously hadn't gone what you've gone through to do it?
Yeah,
Yes,
because
yeah.
like even the smallest
Why?
illness, when you want to like get it checked out, having to be like, oh yeah, but technically I'm not signed into this GP. You
Yeah.
don't like every time you phone in the morning, it goes to people that are registered first.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get an appointment. You're not going to get seen unless you have like you are signed into that.
Yeah, and I'm so I guess, yeah, if you're watching this is like, I guess one of our pieces of advice is definitely sign up to your local GP, whether you're at home or you move away from to university. There's something that we do at university is that when we have Welcome Fair, which is known as Freshers Fair, we have people that you can sign up right there and then, and I'm sure other universities do that.
Yeah.
If you're watching from outside of our university, check with your uni and your student services. I'm sure they'll be doing it. And in terms of kind of, you mentioned about this earlier, students in general have, it's not a secret. Most of us have bad mental health. It's to do with just the worries of the world. There's so much that goes on, plus assignments, plus
Paying
the fact
for
that
everything.
paying for everything, cost of living. Like I can go on
So
and on.
much, yeah.
You have the added stress of kind of what you went through. How has that been for you over the past year, as like first years, trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do in the future, trying to navigate university? How has that journey been for you?
I think for me, before meningitis, I would have always called myself the happy friend.
Yeah.
And I think this, as you said, when you asked if it's changed my life, I think I've had to find myself again and figure out who I am post a big illness, and as you know, not letting it define you. But I think I've had to learn how to look after myself. I've also had to learn how to talk to people about how I'm feeling, which I didn't really have to do before.
Uh-huh.
And that is obviously a blessing, but now I have to learn how to do that. So I think just it takes a while, but once you're figuring out and you realize that it's okay to talk to your friends, it's okay to not always be this happy friend, and you don't have to live up to an expectation of who you used to be, or you know, whatever. You're always growing and you're always developing. So I think talking to people is the main thing. And also for me, I thought that it was because of the meningitis, and it's just that they were linked. And being alone, I think, as we said, like, this is a very isolating illness when you feel like it's only you. So I think talking to other people really helps. So if you were feeling a certain way and you spoke to someone else that felt similar, it would help. Like,
yeah,
comfort.
Which is why we love Meningitis Now, because that's what you did. You
Literally,
found your people on Facebook, of all places. But it's really, really important. So yeah, if you feel like you're being isolated because of this illness, get in touch with Meningitis Now.
Definitely.
All the details are in the description. And we briefly discussed off camera, something that I didn't know about meningitis is that it can actually affect your nerves. And you said that it has affected you and you've noticed it.
Yeah, so like I didn't really understand what was going on, because like I was always like the happy friend. Like, I would never be the one to bring up that I had a problem. I'd never be the one to be upset or have be anything like that, kind of, in a way. And then since having it, I've noticed like one small thing will set me off. And like it doesn't have to be big. It could literally be something that even in my head I know, this is stupid. Why am I reacting like this? And then I spoke to the hospital about it, and they were like, no, my nervous system hasn't fully recovered yet. It's still in a healing process. So obviously one thing offsets that. That's it. Like, it will like create a bigger reaction. And I think a lot of that, like, I was just so unaware of. I just sort of put it down to I was being stupid, or like, and also like sometimes you just think like, you know, when you know you've reacted big to something, and I'm like, oh, people just like have just seen me react big to something, and like seen me sort of not be myself as well, because especially my home friends, they'd know like I am the outgoing friend that makes friends with random people, will talk to strangers, don't care, and like I'm always generally like the smiley one, the chatty one. And I think to sort of have a change from that was a massive like shock to me, and a massive like thing to sort of overcome. And again, like you said, talking to people, because you feel like almost stupid talking to people and being like, I'm sad. And like, you know, when people are like, how are you?
Never.
Sometimes you feel like they don't actually want to know how I am. But like
people do.
Yeah.
Because people go through the same thing.
Exactly.
Especially with students. Like, I think you have very similar experiences.
Very similar.
Yeah, and I think like you make such close friends at uni, and you do. And it's in such a short period of time that you make close friends. But I think sometimes, like, I especially thought, I was like, there's a difference, because these close friends are very new close friends compared to friends that I've had since I was 4 at home, and like know me inside out. And I think getting to know them better and understanding that I can speak to them as well, just because they're new friends doesn't mean that they won't understand at all and they won't care. Like, I think it's definitely taken a lot to sort of know that you should talk to people.
I agree with that.
It takes time. It takes bravery as well to kind of like get that courage and conviction to go and say to someone, hey, I'm not okay, whether it's a mental health issue or maybe you're not feeling well, you're having a bad day, you're like, I'm really tired, I feel like I need to speak to someone, or I need someone to help me with something. Well, before we wrap up, I kind of want to ask you a question, because I'm really intrigued, because I am one of those people where whenever I feel anything wrong with my body, I'm like, let me Google, let me find out, let me open up the NHS app. Do you guys have the NHS app?
I do, yeah.
Yeah? Do you check it regularly?
No.
Which is good. But I guess you're aware of what you're going through, so you've kind of like taken that step already.
Yeah.
But what would your advice be to someone that doesn't have the app at the moment? Because if you don't know, an NHS app is a great app that kind of gives you, it's like an encyclopedia of all illnesses, and you can help begin to discover more about certain illnesses like meningitis. What would your advice be to someone that maybe hasn't used it or is thinking about using it?
I think don't look at the first search on Google. Because it will be the worst. I think definitely go to a legit website of whatever the like illness or symptom is, and like dig a lot deeper, because I think the first thing you see always looks bad or might be incorrect. So I think making sure that you've got the right information is definitely like what you need. And then obviously if you need to go to the GP, you've got that like kind of information to give them as well, which will help.
And you can do that via the app. Like if you're registered with your local GP, once it gets processed, you can book and like speak to people through that.
Yeah, and like I think when I first got it, like my mum was looking through it and using it to see what vaccinations I'd had and what I had like got done in that.
Which is another important thing to know your vaccination history when you start university or go somewhere else.
Yeah, it says your history. Also, I think it says like your past appointments and stuff, that's like it's got notes on stuff like that and what you've been treated with, because they don't have the same app in Wales, so I don't have it now, but I know when I was at home I did have it, and like when I was with my home GP, like we were looking through that, because I got it during COVID, because I think once you had that it could show as well your vaccine pass and stuff, so I got it then, and
I've been using it since COVID.
Yeah.
I want to ask the meningitis team something about what we just mentioned about like vaccination history. Why is that an important thing for people to know? Is that a loaded question?
Important to know your vaccine history, so you know if you've had all the vaccinations that you should have had. We know that, you know, with COVID that led to some people not getting vaccines when they were supposed to, according to the NHS schedule. So through the app you can check your vaccination history, and you know, as we've said, if you haven't had those vaccines, you know, you can contact your GP, contact your university health service, and make sure you've got what you need to keep yourself protected.
Right. I think it's really, really important to kind of, again, it's like the awareness of knowing more.
Yeah.
Because it's preventative. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you like a really final question. And it can be emotional, so feel free to, if you don't want to answer it, If you can go back to your first day at uni after what you've gone through, what would you say to yourself? I know it's a hard question. Take your time.
I feel like I was quite good at straight away getting in there, I think, but I was very nervous, and I think I did have the fear, and I was like, oh, if I just drink alcohol, I'll be fine. But I would have been fine without it. Like, I didn't have to do that. Like,
so is that what you say to yourself?
yeah,
it's like,
I think
take it easy.
just that you don't need to drink, you don't need to do that to have fun. You can make friends out of that. And also, like, sort of, I think I'd just have told myself, like, it's not as stressful as you think, because no matter what time you join, like, people are still there to make new friends. Like, I've made new friends in the past month. Like, so me just joining a month late was harder to make friends, but people were still completely open to making friends. It wasn't like, because in my head, I was almost like, felt like I was joining school. And like, you know, when you go into a school and there's like the cliques and the groups and
everyone turns around and looks at you.
Yeah, and I was so scared there'd be like the popular group, the nerdy group, and I'd just be there like, where do I go?
Uni's not like that, by the way.
No.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah.
What would you say to yourself in terms of like taking care of your health?
I think definitely to just, yeah, like you were saying earlier, like prioritize yourself, not prioritize how other people think of you. Prioritize yourself and how you feel instead, I think.
Fab. What about you? What would you say to your first day at uni self?
I think I'd say that everything that you're feeling is valid, and that that you're not alone in what you're going through, and that although I've had this illness, people are still feeling similar without even having had that. And just to be validated. Definitely.
I think that's very, very wise from both of you. Just like kind of like just take care of yourself, figure out what if you feel like something's not right, it probably isn't right.
Yeah.
Figure out the right help, get on the app, speak to your GP, speak to your family, speak to your friends, let them know what's going on. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. Before we wrap up, we're going to do something very like traditional at Behind the Uni podcast. As you kind of our first non-Uni of Gloucester students, I'm still going to ask you this question. We ask all of our students that come on the podcast, at some point throughout your first year at uni, you might have run out of food in your cupboard. You might have, maybe the coin was tight. What is the most student-y meal that you've cooked for yourself? To give you an example, mine is Marmite pasta, which I think is a delicious meal.
I actually like that anyway.
Some people have attacked me for it, but I like making Marmite pasta. I think it's a great meal. Put some Parmesan on it. What would be yours? We have had like really bad ones like bread and water, which we do not recommend.
I'm really trying to think.
I feel like all my weirdest uni meals are coming back after a night out and eating the weirdest food that I found in my cupboard.
Okay.
Like I've like looked back the next day and seen in my memories I once made nachos, but
Sounds fantastic.
But with beans, baked beans.
Oh, nice.
It was like a layer of
That's like British nachos.
a layer of nachos, then
cheese.
cheese, then a layer of baked beans.
I think that sounds great.
And it was really nice, and I've never tried it since because I'm not sure if it was only nice because I was drunk. But like it was a weird one.
Like,
that and like, to be fair, because I work at Tesco's, I have it like I'll be straight in the reduced to clear section and immediately I'll be like, what is the cheapest I can get right now?
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of like
reduced meal deals.
Yeah.
Nice. Like mashed potato.
Not again.
Oh, not again.
Yeah. If all else fails, I have to go back to mashed potato with an unnecessary amount of gravy every time.
That sounds great. What about you?
I think I've had porridge with water for dinner because that was it. All I had was oats.
I think we have had that. Second person has actually said this.
Because I'd normally make it with milk, but I didn't have milk, so it was literally porridge, oats and water. I've also done a wrap pizza, so a wrap and tomato puree, but I didn't have any cheese, so it was literally a wrap and tomato puree.
Yeah,
okay,
that's less nice.
I was about to say I did that for lunch the other day, and I was like, that was good, but I added cheese.
Yeah. I think the cheese would have been fine, but literally it was bread and tomato.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for making the trip all the way to Cheltenham and visiting us at the University of Gloucestershire. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and obviously go to our YouTube channel. We've got more episodes from Behind the Uni, and if you're listening on Spotify or wherever you're enjoying your podcast, thank you so much for listening. This has been such a really eye-opening episode for me, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences. As always, thank you so much for listening, and if you feel like you need help with finding out more about meningitis, or you're worried about it, or someone in your circle might be experiencing it, you can find amazing resources with our friends at Meningitis Now. Head to the link in the description, or just simply search Meningitis Now on Google. I'm looking at the team. Anything I've missed out? Any order of business? Fab. And as always, make sure if you are interested in finding out more about the University of Gloucestershire, just head to our Instagram or our TikTok at Uni of Gloss, drop us a DM, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do the classic Behind the Uni thing where we do this like CBBS little wave to the screen. So if you're happy, if you, on the count of 3, just entertain it and just wave at the screen, okay? Fab. 1, 2, 3. Bye.